Hello! Because my work gives me the great privilege of hearing people's life stories, people often ask me, what are some of the most interesting things that you've heard? And I often say, in every single interview I've done, there's always been a moment of beauty where someone's absolute core self comes through. And this has been consistent in every interview I've ever done. So in this video, I would like to share some of the beautiful moments and things that came through in 2024. I'll start with one of my clients. He was talking about what really matters to him with regards to his life purpose. And he said the most important thing to him was working to help his children survive him so that they can extend his whole family's legacy. And for him, despite having lived a really adventurous life, having had a big career and lots of lovely things happen, it all just came back to his children and his grandchildren for him. Another client shared with me the story of when he needed to make a decision about what to do with his life as a young man. And he said his grandfather took him for a bit of a walk and said to him, "Don't do what your dad and I have done and do a trade. Open up your world." And he told him the story of the swan song. And this is just a story, it's not fact. He said to him, "Do you know the story of the swan song?" And this man said, "Oh no, I don't." And he said, "Well, the swan has the most beautiful of all bird songs, but it only sings as it's dying." He said to him, "Don't be a swan. Go and get a higher education and sing your whole life." And that always stuck with this man. Another person I interviewed this year was a refugee, and she spoke about traveling halfway across the world as an 11-year-old, living in a refugee camp, all sorts of things. And when she arrived in Australia, she was spending time with other people who were also refugees, many of whom had come on similar but different journeys. And what she realized from these conversations was that she was one of the few who had survived. So she said to me that she is grateful that she survived. And I really reflected on this because I haven't had the most privileged of lives, but I've never had a moment where I've thought, oh, phew, I might not have survived that. So it made me really reflect on the privilege of just having a safe home and what that must feel like to know that you are coming from a place that didn't have a safe home. So I had a client in 2024 who had cared for her adult son from when he was 17 and diagnosed with really significant mental health issues. So she cared for him for 30 years until he'd passed away of natural causes. And what that meant was that she had to become his advocate and go out and really fight the hard fight for him across all kinds of medical doctors and professions to make sure he got the care he needed to have the very best quality of life that was available to him. This meant that she gave up many, many things. And she didn't always have the time or the freedom to pursue the other things in her life that she loved. But when she was talking about this time, she said, "It was a great privilege to care for my son." And that moment absolutely touched me because for her, she knew that she held his safety and security in her hands and that she was able to give him a life of love. So there's something so very beautiful about that. I have a client in the United States who holds her relationship with God very, very close to her heart. She talked about her children growing up, and that she felt her job as a parent was to help them become exactly who they're meant to be in this world. And the quote that she uses to hold herself in that space was, "Maybe you are born for a time such as this." And I loved this saying. I loved it that she used it to inform her parenting. She said, she told her children, "I want you to be exactly who you need to be in this world. So tell me what it is that you love the most and let me help you get there." That's a beautiful, beautiful way of going about things. I had another client who grew up in Geelong in Victoria, in a home where they never had holidays, let alone travelled. Now, this woman went on to become someone who has solo travelled many, many times to all different places across the world. She's quite remarkable. She talked to me about going on her very first trip when she was just 20, and all the things that she quickly learned she was naive about in the world. So she spoke about going off to Egypt and learning that she needed to cover up so that she could avoid unwanted attention. So just the cultural differences that you would never know if you've never been exposed to these things. But when she talks about her world and her travels, she said to me, "When I'm on my deathbed, I will not care about the material possessions I had in my life, but I will remember every adventure I ever had." And I thought that was just stunning. I worked with another woman who'd had a really challenging, difficult, and somewhat traumatic start to life. And the story that we were focusing on was very much how she'd gone on her journey to empower herself and create a high sense of agency to control her world. She told the story of giving birth to her only child. And she said, in that moment that she was giving birth, she felt like she was God, like she was omnipotent, all-powerful. Because she was creating something, she had the power to create this new life. And when she talks about that moment, she can absolutely summon up those feelings of having that strongest sense of power and control in her world. And for someone that came from her start in life, this is a beautiful thing. So they are some of the beautiful pearls of wisdom and lovely moments that have come through in interviews that I did in 2024. I am looking forward to the beautiful things that are coming through in interviews in 2025.